you're about to watch or listen to is a great conversation that I had with Miss Kimberly Parry. She is a life stylist or life coach, if you will. She does things a little bit differently, though, and her story is very inspirational and I think definitely worth a listen. She's doing a lot of really good things for her clients, has been at it for a while. She's a TEDx speaker, and she's got a great perspective on life success and all this. So get in there, take a listen to the interview, and hopefully you love it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Never Too Late Enterprises podcast. This week we've got a special guest for you, Miss Kim Parry. How's it going, Kim?
Good. It's going really good today.
Good. So, I guess the first thing I'd like to start with is just tell the people who you are and what you do.
My name is Kimberly Parry. I'm the owner and founder of Emergence Life Coaching, and I'm a life stylist. So I combine life coaching with personal styling to help individuals regain their confidence, reconnect with their core identity, and use their style, right, which can be communicated through fashion, but it's communicated in many different ways in our lives, to find their voice and to live more authentically empowered.
Awesome. That sounds fantastic. I think a lot of people get a lot of value out of that. How long have you been doing this?
I've been a life coach for about 7 years now, and the styling aspect of it came into it as I had more clients who were moving through my programs and getting in touch with themselves. I actually had a number of women who talked about how now that they knew who they were, their external world didn't match. Their clothes didn't match, their house didn't match, their environment didn't match. And that actually led me to get certified as a personal stylist as well. So the styling came in the last couple of years, but authentic alignment and coaching has been the core of what I've done for the last number of years.
Well, it sounds like you found a really unique way to combine things together and kind of encompass people's entire lives, not just one specific aspect of it.
Yes. Yep. And it's so important that all aspects of our lives are aligned. Sometimes things will be going really well at work, but they'll be struggling in our personal relationships or vice versa. And we try to kind of limp along, right? Because so many other areas of our lives are aligned that we ignore that one that's not, until, in my experience, it tends to blow up in my face if I ignore it too long. So.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, right?
Yep. Yeah.
This sounds like something that's been coming up a lot in a lot of different circles in the business entrepreneurship world lately. Is people are just crushing it with wealth, for example. They're making money, they're managing their money fine, all those kind of things, but their relationships are hurting, or their health is hurting, or some combination of those kind of things. Kind of sounds like you've got the idea and the method to be able to kind of take care of more than one thing at a time, right? Like you were just talking about, So how exactly is it that you got into this? Like what led you down this path to get here?
What led me here is what leads a lot of my clients to me. And that's exactly what you're talking about. It's that burnout, that, again, we try to limp along and try to ignore. A lot of us, especially entrepreneurs, tend to be go-getters, goal setters, right? We know how to push through and dig deep and work hard, and all those things. And so when we start to feel burnout and we approach life that way, we try to push through things, and work harder and run harder, and we tend to burn out faster. And that's my story. Throughout my life, I've been a leader, I've been a go-getter, I served in academic leadership for a long time. I taught college courses for 16 years of my career. Loved it. But had gotten to a point where my career had kind of plateaued, and I still loved my job. But I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I felt like I needed a little bit more development. But it ain't broken. So I just kind of figured out it was something I'll get through it. Thing was happening in my marriage. Things were getting rough, but it was the same thing. Everybody has challenges. We're hitting a slump, push through to get through it.
and
and just started to get burnout in different areas of my life until, there was a period where, in a period of a year, I had found out I was pregnant, had a really rough pregnancy. I was on modified bed rest for half of that. Came out of that, and 2 months after my son was born, my health blew up. It was like a neurological bomb exploded. I found myself on a bed in my living room. My leg would give out on me. I had a bunch of neurological symptoms, and I was going to doctors who couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They would run tests. I felt like a human guinea pig. They'd run tests and come back and say, nothing's wrong with you. And yet my body wasn't working, right? And at the same time, things in my marriage continued to implode, as stress tends to do. And so within a period of a year, I found myself chronically ill, diagnosed with multiple chronic conditions that had completely changed my quality of life, finding myself separated and eventually divorced. And as a result of all that, I lost my career as well. I couldn't stand in a classroom. I needed to figure out a career that I could do regardless of what was going on with my symptoms. So I was an out of work, divorced, single mom with 3 kids trying to rebuild my life. And the process that I went through in doing that and really reconnecting with who I was and realizing that my burnout resulted from ignoring my inner voice and my inner guidance that had been telling me that something was out of alignment. I needed to wake up, but I ignored it until life blew up. And that process is what has allowed me to help other people avoid that midlife crisis that can come, and start listening to those signs and symptoms of burnout early on and get authentically aligned so that they can live more successful and fulfilling lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like I said, that's something that so many people seem to run into is you find that wall, and then trying to maintain authenticity and maintain who you are as a person through all the changes that we do experience as business owners and entrepreneurs. That's hard already, right? But if you're starting from behind, like way behind already, because you were never quite aligned to begin with, that's just that much more difficult. So I think you've got a really awesome mission. So it sounds like this is a calling of yours. This is something that you're called to do. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how many people do this over the years?
Sorry, you cut out for a second.
How many people have you helped do this over the years?
I've worked with individuals for the last 7 years. I've had hundreds of different clients and individuals that I've supported in different ways. But in my academic career also, I was a religion teacher. So I've always been connected with spirituality and authentic alignment that way. So over the years, between students and clients, I've worked with countless individuals.
Hard to keep track of them all, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. When people get that that wake up at some point in your life, you had that wake up call, like, hey, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, right? With the lifestyle coaching, it was after your child was born, you had the health issues, all that kind of stuff. What led you to teach religion? Was that something that was just always in the cards, or?
I have always been interested in spirituality and philosophy and religion. I was raised in a very religious family, and ironically, I wasn't super religious in high school. It was something that, my family very much adopted and my mom very much pushed. And so the rebel in me didn't want to align with that. But when I went to college and started exploring things, I really resonated with religion, especially studying different world religions and philosophies. But I've always been into that. But just a passion for scripture and religious teachings, religious practices, and how that connected with who we are and our identity. Identity has always been a foundational thing for me, helping college students, especially right in those formative years as they were exploring who they were and what they believed, being able to teach that and teach those principles really resonated with me. And again, it was a career that I loved. It's not one that I left, because I hated it or, lost faith or whatever. I left my career because physically I needed to adjust and I needed to do some things differently for me. And moving into life coaching, especially with an authentic alignment perspective, that for me, I talk about getting soul set before you get mindset, right? A lot of coaches focus on mindset and setting a goal and setting an intention. And what I found is that, we can do that, but if it's centered in cultural practices or other people's definitions, that we're trying to live up to other people's definitions or achieve other people's definitions of success, if it's not authentically aligned, we still won't feel fulfilled, even if we reach all those goals and set our minds to accomplishing something. So I talk about the need to get soul set before we apply mindset. And so, yeah, the religion ties into that as well. But there is a difference between religion and spirituality, and understanding those nuances can make a difference too.
Oh yeah, for sure there is. I think a lot of people get that confused too, is like that there is a line there, and that's probably not a conversation that I want to get into with this right now, because I'm not soul set yet.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something we can get kind of but you brought up an interesting point there, like people focusing on mindsets, I think sometimes too much, to where it can almost get to be a trap in a lot of ways, because the mindset thing is somebody else telling you this is what you should be doing, right? In most cases, like you should be thinking this way, you should be doing these things and all this stuff, right? And that's more of other people's expectations. So if people get too far into that and they start to say, oh, well, I didn't succeed because my mindset wasn't right, but they're missing the tactical or the strategy that actually would have led to success had they done those things, but they're putting it purely on mindset, that can be dangerous too. Is that something that you've come across with people?
Yes, I have. And especially when it comes to the frustration of why isn't it working? And I think, again, talking about the type A personalities, right? Well, I'm thinking the right things and I've got my goal set and I've got my vision board and I've got all these things and I'm pushing, right? I'm pushing to get things done. But if we've never taken that one step back and checked in with ourselves to make sure, is this something that I even want? Going back to spirituality, in the Course of Miracles, right? A spiritual text. One of my favorite lines from that says, we don't even know what we want, right? That sometimes we'll start with mindset and go to, tangible physical outcomes, right? Like I'm going to put an affirmation on my mirror of a specific, number I want in my bank account, right? Like I want to make this much money, or I want to drive this car, or I want this kind of a relationship. And we put that on our vision board, right? And we start working towards it, we might get that. But sometimes, we're trying to live up to a definition of success that we picked up from a culture or from our family of origin, or, what other people have defined as success, when the reality is not everybody needs a lot of money. In fact, I actually have worked with some clients where wealth, like exorbitant amounts of money, which comes with responsibility, right? You've got to be able to manage all of that. And that comes with, more money, more problems. I went to inner city schools, right? That phrase comes up. And a lot of people don't understand that. And some people actually feel really uncomfortable with wealth. If you're experiencing burnout, whether you've been losing yourself at work or losing yourself in a relationship, our Unlock Your It Factor program is designed for you. You will learn simple, applicable tools to get reconnected and authentically aligned so you can achieve greater success in life. Check it out. It's not aligned with who they are authentically, and it's not necessarily that they want poverty, but it's just, if they spend all their time chasing money, where what really makes them fulfilled is connected relationships, yet they're, sacrificing their relationships to chase money, it's not aligned. And so they get confused, right? Because, well, I'm doing the mindset thing. I'm being told, money will make me happy. And yet, if you don't know yourself and that's not the authentic truth for you, you're still going to burn yourself out because you're doing something that's not aligned with the core of who you are. And so we've got to look at those definitions. We've got to look at our goals and really come to know ourselves, independently of, culture and religion and, family of origin, all these outside noises, right, that can try to tell us who we should be. And at some point, we've got to grow up and as adults get really connected with, who am I authentically? What is my definition of success? When I leave this world, because we all will at some point, there's one way out, right? But when that happens, will money really be the defining factor? And I found in my health challenges, for me, that's not the case. Like my bank account is important. Let's be honest. I enjoy having one, but ultimately, my relationships with my kids, with myself, my integrity really is a bigger definition of success for me than chasing money. And so realigning that intent, yes, money comes with it. But when I had my priorities aligned with who I was, that's where I found peace. That's where I found fulfillment. And the more you have of that, the more energy you have to bring to life. And the more success that it's an upward spiral. Right.
Right. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that's one of those things that like I said, I've noticed has been a very more open conversation from successful people in the world today that are public facing, right? People doing podcasts, that kind of stuff. Spirituality has become a lot more prevalent in those outward facing people, right? You got big names talking about, their relationship with Christ and their whatever their thing is, right? Being very open about that and finding that fulfillment. There are some guys out there that are, taking this crazy amount of financial success and wealth that they've accumulated and realize that it doesn't mean anything for what they're supposed to be doing or what they feel their calling is, right? So they're pivoting those business and entrepreneur skills into much bigger causes and missions, like, just doing nonprofits and all these awesome things that they're doing. But then there's still also the other side of the equation where you find all the other, like the other side of it, basically, where people are talking about, oh, well, success is this, and this, and that's what matters, right? It's interesting how society's gotten to that dichotomy openly now. It's always been there, but with the availability of information and this kind of format like this, people can really talk about it and hear all sides of it instead of just the one, like we've all seen on YouTube, Facebook for the last decade or so about the cars, the mansions, all that kind of stuff. And you're not wrong. Those things are nice. Those are indicators of success, right? But they are not the success themselves. And being able to live a comfortable life is also going to be important to having that path to fulfillment too. One of the things that I believe, that we believe in my company, is if your cup is empty, you can't do anything for anybody else. So
right.
Your cup first, right? Put your rocket to
and it frees your stress, it frees your energy, right? When you're not stressed or held down by different things, you have more energy to give to others. So
exactly. Yeah.
And with entrepreneurship, that can come and go, right? The flux and even outside of entrepreneurial, as we found, the economy is going to be in flux, interest rates, real estate markets, right? We live in a world that's constantly changing, and it'll test us in different ways, but it also allows us to reinvest our energy and realign constantly.
Right. Yeah. And that's awesome that people like you are out there to kind of help find people, to help people get that alignment, right? To realize at least what direction they're looking at, right?
Right.
Because that's the hardest thing, I think, for people to figure out, is like, where should I even be pointing my compass? That's hard. It is very hard, and that's a battle that I've had. I know you've had that, from what you just talked about, and and all these things, it's amazing how much everything intertwines, right? In order to be, wealthy, financially successful, and maintain that and actually have purpose to that, you know, you've got to have solid relationships. So your life at home with your family, your wife, husband, whatever it is, has got to be solid too, you know. And then you got to be real with yourself and your health and everything. So
Mhm.
it's all very much intertwined. And I'm really glad people like
Yep.
you are out there helping find people, understand that. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. So with your health issues and everything that you've talked about, that's got to
Mhm.
be. I'm sure at this point you've kind of gotten a rhythm about how to go about things and all that, right? But
Yep.
that transition, once you realize those things and how to deal with everything you're dealing with every day, that transition to be able to keep your cup full, to be able to help others,
Mhm.
was that difficult to get to that point?
It was because I was so out of alignment, and I'm not gonna, I mean, even just this week, right? The kids have their stuff going on, life is going crazy. I was having this conversation with my brother yesterday, actually, just where, people have this perception that life coaches or counselors and therapists, have it all together all the time. And that's just not true. Life happens, right? It's going to challenge us, and it requires, yesterday I had to do a reset and get myself reconnected and figure out, okay, where am I out of alignment? Where do I need to hold better boundaries? What does my self-care look like? And we constantly need to check in with ourselves. But the initial process, I had gotten so used to listening to other people, listening to the outside voice over my own. And especially when everything hit, listening to doctors over my intuition. And I am not saying don't listen to doctors. I'm not one. I get vaccinated, and that's a whole other ball of wax. I know everybody's got an opinion on that. But again, it's coming back to what is authentic for me, what is right for me. And my health challenges, more than anything, again, I had taught religion for 16 years. I thought I was pretty tight with spirit and soul work and all that kind of stuff. But navigating my chronic illness, when you talk about the mind, body, spirit connection, chronic illness has a way of challenging all of that in a really intense way. And I needed to get information from credible sources. The symptoms that I had were so huge. Like, I have specialists out of state. I had to travel to get accurate diagnoses and information about the things that I was navigating. And that wasn't cheap or easy. Again, single mom, that was a challenge, but I learned through that process to listen to my body, listen to the information my body was communicating to me, to get information from sources that I trusted, not just going to any doctor. I learned the importance of working with physicians rather than just, going and accepting a first opinion, getting a second opinion, weighing that information and being fully informed, and then listening to my gut. And I literally, in February, I just went to one of my specialists in Indiana, and I'm literally a walking miracle right now. Like, according to science, I should be in a wheelchair. And with everything that I have, it's usually a starting point. Like, your symptoms are your starting point, and what I have is progressive. And so it tends to get worse. And yet I'm here, I'm functioning, I'm, single parenting, right? All of these things, and defying medical science. And again, I am religious and spiritual. I will say part of it is just miracle that I can't explain, right? But the rest of it is that process of getting trusted, medical practitioners, people that I trust to listen to me, to take in my symptoms, to look at the bigger picture, to collaborate with each other. I've got 9 rare chronic conditions that require some communication between my providers. So getting that kind of information, but also listening to my body and listening to what it's telling me. Different times of year, my symptoms will kick up. It'll tell me when my stress is overloading. Stress lights my symptoms up, and it's actually a pretty big indicator to me that I need to check in with myself again, and listening to my gut. It's the three of those. So yeah, that process really is the foundation of what I do with my coaching. It's how I learned it.
Right. Yeah. And then you said 9. You've got 9 chronic illnesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Autoimmune is, it's kind of like a Pringles can. They say, once you pop, you can't stop, right? Once something lights up with chronic illness or autoimmune, it tends to light up the whole package. So it was like one system, broke down right after another. And literally I went from doing Zumba one morning, I was on with a friend, to having stroke-like symptoms. And the next week I was on a bed in my living room. So I went from healthy and active to kind of immobile. Like people needed to drive me to doctor's appointments and things like that pretty much overnight. It rocked my world. And coming out of that definitely was not, it took really a good solid year before I even started to find answers. And then another year or two after that, before my health really got to a point where I was more functional, so it wasn't easy, but it definitely is what I do now. And it's what I do to maintain.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a really inspiring story. Like there's how many people out there right now are telling themselves, I can't do this because of this. All these reasons we give ourselves, right? Excuses, whatever you want to call it. I am all too familiar with that mindset. I spent a lot of that before I decided to get sober and take care of myself, right? The sobriety thing, that's probably a different conversation too, but it's at the core of it, what I found for myself anyways, was before I decided to take my sobriety and my health and everything seriously, the drinking and all the stupid stuff that I used to do, that I was like, this is my life, right? That was all just one big excuse as well. It was holding myself back from doing what it was I thought I was called to be doing. And I was wrong about that, I think, then, but I was even fighting the thing I was wrong about,
Right.
It's crazy how the human mind can just manufacture reasons not to do good things for ourselves because we're comfortable, right?
Right.
So your story is, anybody out there listening right now that's got any excuses needs to put those aside. If you can get through it, anybody can get through anything, and I can speak for that from my sobriety aspect. We heard your story there. It might be hard, but the hard things are the ones that are most worth doing, right?
Right. I call it developing a can-do attitude. And I hate that word sometimes because my mom, like, you can do it, like goes back to that like mindset, put your mind to it. But for me, I was in an MRI tube. It was my 8th MRI. I realized like I was sobbing. I was missing my kids' lives. I had missed a year of my kids' lives chasing diagnoses, only to have doctors come back and say, we can't find anything wrong. Nothing's wrong with you, and I was going to 3 to 5 doctor's appointments a week. Other people were watching my kids, taking care of my kids. And I was laying there and I just realized like, I didn't know what my quality of life was going to look like. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was done wasting my life missing my kids' lives. And so I just made the decision that I was going to do whatever I could do that day. And some days I will tell you, like some days what I can do is wake up and that's about it. Like if I woke up this morning, some days that's what I can do. Some days I can do a lot more. Some days what I can do is put on a Netflix show and lay on the couch while I'm in a ton of pain, but at least I'm there with my kids, and some days all we can do is watch Netflix. But I decided I was going to do what I could do. And I didn't know what that would look like. And really the diagnoses and prognoses I was being given was that my quality of life was not going to be great. But in doing, like just waking up and deciding, okay, today I'm going to do what I can do. And I'm going to accept what I can't, but I'm going to do what I can do. And little by little, just getting up and getting out of bed, getting and getting myself dressed, getting up and getting out of bed and doing a 5-minute walk if I could, right? and then getting dressed, right? And little by little, my ability to do increased. And I think when I focused on the things I couldn't do was when I was laying on the bed in my living room, right? And the same kind of, right? Like when we focus on what's going wrong or the excuses or whatever, we focus on what I can't do. But when we wake up and say, okay, today I'm going to do what I can do, it's a much more empowering way to start the day. And it also got me to a point where I would do that one thing, get out of bed. If today all you can do is get out of bed, have a can-do attitude. What can I do today? And maybe I can't go to work and do all the things I used to, but I can make a phone call and be there for someone else. I can, reach out to my kids. And I realized I was a lot more present with the people I cared about once I started doing that than just wallowing in pain and sickness and everything else. And it's literally changed my life.
That's awesome. And it's done. That same idea has done the same for me. It's, there are a lot of things that we can't control in our lives. We're a monolith in this big world, right? Each individual, one of us. But the things that we can control, how do we respond to our outside stimuli? How do we, do the things that we can do every day? And people just get so hung up on all the negative all the time. And unfortunately, that's become a lot easier to do in the modern world with just everything all the time, right? But we can control that too. How much of that do we actually take in and pay attention to? So, getting off of social media and stopping watching, don't watch TV anymore, those kind of things.
Yeah.
They made a huge difference in my life. I decided to stop watching like TV
for me.
And that was long before I even got sober. I was like, this is just so doom and gloom all the time. Like, I need to be aware of what's going on in the world, but it's got to be in a sane fashion, So control how you do that kind of thing.
Right.
And from excuse me, from what you're talking about, it definitely sounds like you are, like you said, like a walking miracle. If you've got all this stuff going on, you should be in a wheelchair, all these kind of things, and you're out there, doing your coaching thing and all this, like that's awesome, And it kind of got me thinking a little bit about like the word miracle and miracles a little bit in general, right? I've never been a super spiritual person, but I do believe there's something bigger than us, and there's a lot of things, like I said, we don't control, right? I'm not really sure where I sit on that spectrum yet, right? There's still a lot of self-discovery to do with all that kind of thing. But one thing that I have thought about, and you brought it up, is the miracle stuff, right? So I've got a kind of a 2-point of view on miracles. One, the things that we can't control that we have nothing to do with, things like miraculous health, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
But then there's like the smaller everyday miracles where you did wake up that day, you had no control over that, but here you are. Be grateful for those things, right? Wake up like you just got a $10 million checking account. It's more to that, right? Being able to wake up and breathe every day. I think those everyday miracles, though, in my view, are opportunities and taking them to their logical extent, like how far we can go with them, right? Being able to recognize those. Would you agree with that? That's where most miracles happen, is recognizing opportunity and moving forward with them?
Oh yeah. I agree with that. And I think, especially, again, talking about the difference between, spirituality and religion, for me, religion goes to, the doctrines and teachings about things. Spirituality for me is about our personal core soul, right? Like whatever you call that, our core personality, and really being in tune with ourselves. So higher power, can go along with spirituality, it can go along with religion, right? But those things outside of us, whether it's science, whatever name you put on that, again. So miracles to me are those things where it is, beyond what we can explain, and it's beyond what we can control. And so again, whatever the source is from that, right? You can put whatever name or belief on it, but that there are things that are out of our control. There are synchronicities that show up in our lives Call it coincidence, call it miracle, call it, whatever that shows up. But I think gratitude, like you said, is a big thing that opens my eyes to opportunity. If I'm in fear or if I'm in lack, my eyes are usually closed to those opportunities, or I don't see the daily, again, I've learned with my chronic illness, if I wake up, that's a miracle. But if I wake up and I'm functional, right? I mean, that's a party. Yeah,
Right.
and I don't know, because I defy science, I can't guarantee how long that's going to last. So like literally every day it's wake up and assess, okay, where's my starting point today? So yeah, I think being able to look through the lens of gratitude is where we see that opportunity. And that doesn't have to come from any kind of religious or spirit, if you consider yourself, not a spiritual person. I know people who don't, but when they operate from a place of gratitude, right? Gratitude for the relationships that show up, gratitude for, the opportunities that present themselves, we see them more. It's not necessarily that they show up more. I think they're always present, but our ability to see them and act on them shifts. And to me, that's where the world of miracles exists, right? It's not anything that I thought up. It's not anything that I control, but that, my life is happening and that I have a choice in what I'm going to do and how I'm going to show up in my life. And that's going to determine, what continues to show up or how I experience my life. And that's a miracle. Right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I very much agree with you. It's about what we do with the time and the things that we have, right? So that's awesome to hear. I'm not alone in that. That's really, so you recently here, I don't know exactly how long ago it was, but you did a TEDx talk, correct?
Yes. Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, it was October 14th. So yeah, recently.
Very cool. How'd that all go? Pretty well. You're happy with it?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. And what's so funny is people ask me like, what's the coolest thing about TEDx? And I will say that experience is one of the most life-changing experiences that I had, but it's not about the stage itself or the visibility. Like a lot of people are like, oh, that's so cool. Like you're a person now, right? But I
As if you
learned so much. Yeah. Yeah. And it is cool. I like it. It is a big visible thing. It was a bucket list and I loved that part of it. But the people that I associated with and the things that I learned and going through that experience, they say if you want to raise your vibration or if you want to raise your life, surround yourself by people who are doing the same. And, the last month and a half leading up to that was associating just with some phenomenal individuals who opened my mind to ideas and ways of thinking about myself that were so transformational. That experience was so much about the relationships that I developed and the things that I learned about myself, more than necessarily like this resume building thing that, I mean, I won't lie, it's cool, right? But that was really what impacted me, was having that experience walking with so many thought leaders and so many people who were so aligned. To have 20 people, it was a big, it's one of the bigger TEDx stages I've heard of. There were 20 speakers and that there was no drama, no ego in it. I mean, literally we came off of that stage feeling like family, and I'm still in contact with them and supporting each other and checking in with each other. It just really, again, it was a miraculous experience, because where do you experience that, where you get 20 people, very different personalities, very different backgrounds, without some kind of conflict or bumping? I mean, it was incredible. It was really powerful.
Yeah, those live speaking events like that, whether it's TEDx or some big marketing seminar or wherever,
Yeah.
those are where you're going to find and develop the best relationships with like-minded people, because you're all there for the same reason anyways, right?
Yep.
So you're already past the hard part. That's those are the best networking opportunities. The saying, your net worth is your network, and that kind of stuff. That's that's where it starts, and I think, talking about like net worth, that kind of thing on that side of things, right? It's, in my view, that is a lot more to do with the whole package again, right? I mean, you can have a dollar amount attached to your net worth, and that's what everyone sees, right? But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
if you don't have those relationships, you don't have the whole package, again, it doesn't matter, right? So if there was some way to quantify net worth based on, fulfillment of duty or purpose or, all that, I'd much rather prefer that. We just don't unfortunately have a way of quantifying that. And, our brains are wired to be more logical than abstract. So it's, we just like numbers better.
Yeah. And I think everyone has a different composite. I don't know that that's true for everyone, especially having worked with like a number of different clients. I actually do know some people who are more emotive and intuitive, right, than intellectual. And so the intellectual approach to things tends to leave them feeling very unfulfilled.
Okay.
But yeah, I think for me, the quantifying factor comes in that level of confidence and peace. Right. When we're at peace, that is the quantifying factor. And if we're, out of alignment, and it's not that life doesn't happen, right? But, for me, if I'm in my integrity and things, there's been times when I've been in my integrity and things blow up in my face. And there's times when I'm in my integrity and things work out great. Right. But for me, I found that's one of my core values. Right. And so when I'm aligned with my integrity, regardless of the outcome, I can find peace and I have confidence in myself to where, I'm not wallowing, I'm not in shame, I'm not overthinking things. And I'm just like, I know I showed up the way that I wanted to. And as long as I'm doing that, that's my quantifying factor.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. It's that guy or that person that's goes and takes their health very seriously. They walk into a room and they just exude confidence, right? Confidence can overcome a lot of things. Even just walking into a room, you can be the brokest person on the planet, but if you're confident, everyone's gonna love you, right? It goes,
Right.
It starts there, right? It's your aura, if you will, what do you want to call it? Goes a long ways.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Like I said, your story is very, you got a lot of stuff, really cool stuff going on. I think what you're doing with your life is amazing, and definitely keep doing it.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
I'm glad there are people like you in the world that are out there trying to help people. At the end of the day, I think that's what we should all be doing, is try to make others better as well as ourselves, right? So thank you for everything you're doing. I really do appreciate that. And I know your clients do. So getting towards the end of it here, I guess one of the things that I always want to talk to people about is like the books they're reading and that kind of stuff, right? And I know you taught religion for a long time, so one of the books you cannot say is the Bible, okay? Because that's kind of a given for a lot, right? But I'm kind of taking this idea from another podcast that I listened to, because I think it's a really good idea. What are 3 books that you would say have been really transformational or pivotal? That's a hard word. 3 books that you would say have been really informative on your path in life so far.
One of the first ones, and I actually just had talking about TEDx, one of the other TEDx speakers, his name's Jason Ferguson. He's a, like a mindset coach. He speaks a lot to athletes. He was a college athlete. I was an athlete in high school. One of the first books that lit me up, especially around mindset and spirituality, was called Mind Gym. And I can't remember the author off the top of my head. I would have been more prepared if I knew the question was coming, but it's called Mind Gym. And it's written for athletes, and it's like, mental conditioning for athletes. But for me, it applied so much to my life. And I was in college when I read that. That was a big one for me. I've also liked Marianne Williamson, A Return to Love. She's the one, a lot of people attribute her quote to Nelson Mandela, but it's the quote about, the thing that we're most afraid of is that we're powerful beyond measure. right? It's not our inadequacy, but that we're powerful beyond measure. And that actually came from Marianne Williamson in A Return to Love. But that was a transformative book for me, just as far as when I was in a place of looking for self-love and really trying to connect with my inner voice and my inner power. That was a big one. And then I will also say there's a couple that I really love, but Carolyn Meese, Sacred Contracts. And so when you're talking about, purpose and finding, your life purpose and moving forward in that, that was a really powerful book for me in that. And it talks about how, we do in this life, we have these sacred contracts. We have people who are brought into our life to help us learn and grow, and that there are gifts and talents that we are here to bring to others, and being, on purpose and aligned with that is, one of the ways that we'll find fulfillment. So off the top of my head, those are the three that I'd throw out. And all three of them have different approaches. Mind Gym is much more, like a sports psychology book. So it's less the woo, if people, respond more to that, and then the others, but that's what I'd throw out to you today.
Well, that's awesome. Two of those three I'd never heard of before. So that's cool. I have heard of A Return to Love. I did not know that was not Mandela's quote, but
yeah, it's attributed to him a lot, but it actually was from her book. And Nelson Mandela's speech, that it's often attributed to, I think was like within 2 years of the release. And so the timing was there, but yeah, it actually was Marianne Williamson.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely have to read that. I've heard of that one. I just haven't read it yet. So the other two, I was never an athlete really, so I definitely would not have come across Mind Gym. What did you do in high school? What was your sport?
Volleyball. I was a volleyball girl, but I also did wrestling stats. And my daughter just I would never have guessed it, never pushed her into it, but she picked up wrestling. And so I get to be a wrestling mom again. Like the smell of the mats is coming back and everything. But volleyball was my thing. Outside hitter, loved it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I always liked volleyball, but there was never a boys or men's volleyball here for me to like that and continue with that. So, and then I didn't do college.
Did you grow up in North Dakota?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, see, I was a California girl, so beach volleyball and men's volleyball was even, it was a new thing as far as like a high school organized sport. I think it was even club when I was in high school. It wasn't, like they didn't have their official league yet, and that was California where volleyball is the thing. So
yeah, it's like hockey is here. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Never got into hockey either. That was one of those things that my parents were like, that's not happening. Actually, a little bit of athletics that I did in high school was because my parents told me I couldn't play football because it was too dangerous. So I went and ran cross country and tore a muscle in my back. So that was way safer.
Right.
Worked out great. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'll definitely check those out. And I think, as people hear this too, I think I'm hoping people can find more, more books to read, more things that people, can kind of, once you find that book or those 3 books or whatever, how many books, like there's always something that just speaks to somebody in one way or another, no matter what the book is, right? Even if it's a objectively bad book, you can probably learn something from it.
Right. Well, and I found, they come to me talking about those synchronicities and things like that. The books show it, like when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? The phrase says, but I'll find books will come to me and in patterns too. People will, recommend different things. Like a lot of the one that's coming to me right now, that's the next book on my list, is Oprah Winfrey's What Happened to Me. I've had 3 different people, totally different situations. They're not connected with each other, totally different walks of life. And I'm like, okay, apparently that one's getting put on my radar. I may be picking that one up in the next week or 2. So
her story is crazy. Like how she got where she did, just insane. I'd love to read that book sometime too.
Yeah.
People say a lot of great stuff about her now, right? But like, you get to that level, people start to think things of you. So it comes with the territory, I guess.
Right.
No, that's awesome. So Mind Gym, A Return to Love, and Sacred Contracts. So definitely have to check those out.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so then I guess the last thing, or last little thing here before we sign off on this whole thing. First, earlier in the episode, there should have been an ad I put in there if I remember to do it. Okay, so we'll get your ad put in there. For people that skip ads, like I do sometimes, what's the thing you're most excited about that's coming up? You have like a certain offer you're doing or anything like that? What are you super excited about?
Yeah, right now, my digital course, the Unlock Your It Factor program, which is the one that we've been talking about. It's it's my signature program. It's the one that was developed with everything that I came through. That's available on my website, emergencelifecoaching.com. If you just click on courses, it's there. And then for January, I'm working on releasing my body image boot camp that goes along with the styling stuff that I do and redefining the way that we approach our bodies and look at our bodies, which again, through my journey of chronic illness, right, reframed the way that I look at that and talking about the mind, body, spirit connection. So Those are my projects that I'm really excited about right now.
Awesome. That sounds fun. You gotta love that ambition to get out new things all the time, right? That's that's awesome. So people can find you at emergencelifecoaching.com. Is there anywhere else they can find you, like social media, anything like that? You got like
yep. Emergence Life Coaching is my handle on most things except for Instagram. On Instagram, it's Emergence Life Coaching UT. So Emergence Life Coaching Utah.
Somebody already had it. Already had it. Imagine that.
Yeah, so I had to be the Utah, but everything else, Emergence Life Coaching is usually me.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess unless there's anything else you want to add in, like that maybe I missed or forgot to ask or anything like that, is there anything?
Oh, I think that's I'm just grateful for you. I'm grateful for this conversation. I know you have an inspiring story also, and spreading that message. And so I think there's a lot of people who can resonate with, courage and moving forward and all the things. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I hope it works. It's a day by day process, right? That's all we can do.
Yep.
So, well, it's been awesome talking to you again. I'm looking forward to seeing, what you got coming up in the future and how this stuff all works out for you. And I hope we can stay in contact and, see how things. All right.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was an awesome conversation I got to have with Miss Kimberly Parry, life stylist, life coach, whatever you want to call it. She does a lot of really good things. You can hear in the interview there. Great story, great person. It was a real pleasure talking with her. If you are in need or looking for any of her services or looking to contact her in any way, you can find her at emergencelifecoaching.com, on all the social medias at Emergence Life Coaching, or on Instagram as Emergence Life Coaching UT for Utah. Get out there and support a good cause and help her out, and maybe she can help you out too. Well, thank you for joining us again for another episode of the Never Too Late podcast. It's always great to have you. Cannot wait to see you again next week, and get out there and crush it.